Durban since 2018. I was working there. And then, COVID came, 2020. I was one of the unfortunate ones who were laid off, retrenchments. And I think that was one of the most toughest times of my life. Tried to survive though. I remember I started selling chips, fried chips. I had a deep fry thing, the fried chips and gizzards in the street every day, hot or raining, because I needed to survive. And then I was robbed, and someone, some thugs, they took my deep fryer and the table and stuff. So I could no longer now provide for myself. I could no longer do that business that I was doing. They took money, they took everything. And that really now became tough. So I think I was just wearing some jeans, Turkish t-shirt, didn't have a jacket, nothing. Didn't have food for 3 days. I had to sleep outside. Like outside in the field, for 3 days. And the unfortunate thing about life is that for some reason it rained on those days, so I could feel that I'm sleeping outside. It was raining and cold. And then I got a call in July that I had been successful. And that was, I don't know, I cannot describe that moment. I didn't even finish the call. I think, I don't even know where my phone went. I cried a lot because now I was thinking of all the struggle. It was my time. It was time that he elevated me. So I knew then that my struggles are over now. I'm over that. The breakthrough that I've been praying for has come. Initially, it was just me looking for a church nearby where I can fellowship every Sunday. So I kind of searched online for a nearby church, but then I think when I came here for the first time, it resonated a lot with what I want. It fit perfectly with the kind of place I want to involve myself with, the kind of place I want to fellowship in. It has quite a youthful congregation, a youthful leadership, as much as it maintains the core of what many would say is what Christianity is about, but I think it's modern in a way. It's not so rigid on being too religious, or the so-called traditional ways of doing things, and I like that a lot. So I'm free, it's a place that is free, where I can worship freely without being, feeling confined to too rigid rules. So it's a very nice space to be coming to on a Sunday to refresh for the week, reconnect with God, we throughout the week we meet a lot of things, so sometimes we lose the way, so it's good to come on a Sunday and refresh, and it's a perfect place for me. I think the kind of worship, I think, as I mentioned, the sort of modern feel, vibey feel, the freedom to express myself, As much as I'm a new person, I'm new here in the space, in the area, but I feel so comfortable. Everyone kind of welcomed me, and I felt at home instantly. So it wasn't really a tough decision to say, okay, look, this is where I want to be. So I think when I came, just to feel the welcome from everyone, the style of worship, it's perfect for me. Well, I guess I used to live a life that your average young person lives. You're out there, you do this and that. Um, you kind of live in a way that is not necessarily godly. As much as I was raised in a Christian home, where it was church every Sunday and all of that, but I think before there were things that led me to Christ, I didn't really understand that relationship, hence, in most of my youth life, I didn't really even want to go to church. I didn't want to pray, and anything that had to do with church. I wasn't. It was, I suppose, to use the language that people use now. It wasn't cool, So, and I think it showed a lot in some of the challenges that I met in my life, because then I was kind of lost. I think I was kind of lost. So a lot of events, I suppose, happened that led me to when I had to meet Jesus. I guess it was time. I was all in all, my life was just not going in the direction that I would have wanted. I think the direction that my life took, in the sense that when I started to be sort of independent, I was away from home, I was at varsity, that's when you sort of pave way for your life when you're at that stage. And a lot of those went sour, I didn't do so well initially at varsity, mainly because I think I kind of met challenges with my family. I grew distant from my family. So that presented me with, for instance, having to find my own way. When I was at varsity, no one took care of me. I had to, make a way, hustle, see what I'll eat, what I'll wear. So I think at a later stage, then in the later years, during my varsity times, I kind of realized that I needed something to lean on, something to believe in, something to give me hope, something to carry me forward. I had a lot of instances, for instance, as I said, that like I became a loner. I became alone. I couldn't rely on family. No one wanted to assist. You have to study this side. You don't know what you're going to eat. You don't know what you're going to wear. And you can imagine the period at university. You meet a whole lot of different people. So when you're a bit young, it's hard to not fit in. It's hard to need this and that when others have everything that they need. So I think that's when I kind of came close to praying. That's when I kind of met, some people who were, going to church and stuff. And slowly but surely, I kind of got to understand what church is about, what Jesus is about, what the Bible is about, what God is about. Even though I still had a lot of challenges in my life. So I remember this one time, I was still at varsity, by the way. I was coming out of campus, there's a garage in front of our campus. I was going to the garage. I don't know what I was going to do there when I was hit by a car.
Sure.
So I think by the time I realized that the car was going to hit me, it was far, to go to the front. It was also far from the back. So I realized that it was going to hit me. I was just lucky that I saw it on time. So I tried to, duck a little bit. So I think that may have helped to minimize the impact, but the car hit me. The impact was quite hard. But fortunately, I was not injured at all. I just had, I think my body was in shock. I had a lot of pain, but I was not broken, I was not injured. So I think that's one of the things that sort of made me realize that there is a God out there. And when they say, Jesus died so we could live, I kind of got to understand what that meant, because when I was analyzing what had happened, I realized that I could have been injured. I should have been injured.
Sure.
The way the car hit me, the impact, it was a lot, but for some reason, I feel there was some divine intervention, if I may put it like that. And I was uninjured. I was unshaken. I was okay. And so that kind of made me realize that I have some protection, from God. But still reluctant and resistant to openly go to church, to openly pray, to allow that relationship, that connection, with Jesus. And then I think that I had another wake-up call on the same year, by the way. We're coming from Durban to the Eastern Cape, because I was attending university in the Eastern Cape. And it was around 4 a.m. in the morning. We had a car accident. Everyone was injured except me. Broken arms and stuff, and a whole lot of things. I was sitting on the window. There's a seat that is right in front of the back seat, so I was sitting next to the window. The impact was quite big. I was in a taxi, so the taxi, I remember it rolled 3 times, hitting some wall on the side of the road. So it hit the wall, rolled 3 times, and then back. And a friend of mine was sitting next to me on the other side, got quite injured on the back from the window, the broken glass, and I had nothing at all, nothing, no scratch, nothing. And the taxi was quite messed up. And I think that's when I realized, no, there's the Lord is talking to me. It's not because I'm better than anyone that on the same year, were involved in car accidents and I was untouched, nothing. It wasn't because I was special or anything, I think God was trying to show me that, look, I still have big plans for you, but the plans that I have for you, you need to accept and understand that I sent Jesus to die for you so that you know, he gave his life for you. There's a reason why you were not injured, you did not die, because they could have been fatal, you know. I could have died. So I think that's the second accident really shook me up a lot, to an extent that I started to read more about Jesus. I started to read more of the Bible. I started to go to church more. I started to understand this thing that and also it's not just about going to church, but it's a relationship, that I need to accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior. I need to believe that whatever I go through in life, He's there. You know, I needed to believe, for instance, with the fact that I was distant from my family. No one was available to help me with all my struggles. That also, the fact that I still survived under those circumstances, for somehow there was a provision of what I needed. So I think it kind of made me realize that there is this thing that's calling me to the Lord. And I started to have questions about my name. You know, one of my names is Rapelang. Rapelang means pray, Tandazani. So I thought, like, no, there's probably a reason why I have that name. Because my life should be centered around prayer. That whenever I go through whatever I go through, the solution is prayer. Whenever I have victories, I pray. When I have difficulties, I pray. And I think in my life, they really have, the prayer has really worked a lot. I can count practical instances when I prayed and there was a response, there was an answer, there was a breakthrough. Well, it changed a lot positively, because you can understand when you feel alone, and like you cannot rely on anyone, but for some reason you always have, there's always something like a provision that happens, or you get some kind of provision from what you need, even though you don't have people that you thought you could rely on. So you kind of, especially you're a bit younger, so you kind of have those heavy hearts. You start to hate people. You start to have grudges. Why this? Why that? Why other kids having this? Why do I not have this? So you kind of go into a hole, an emotional hole. So I think I started to feel a bit lighter, because I understood that whenever I'm feeling down, I can just talk to Jesus. I could just be in my corner somewhere and have that conversation that, here's what I'm going through. I don't know how I'm going to get out of it. You said when we have things that are heavy, we must come to you. So that really helped me a lot. Things became a bit easier. For instance, I think I mentioned that I had to see for myself where I can get food. I started to be involved in things like SRCs and stuff. So we would get that provision, food per month, some stipends, things like that. For even some people offering to pay school fees, and so these are things just came out of nowhere. When I would be stressing, what am I going to do? How am I going to register next year? Someone would be, willing to offer to pay that initial registration fee. So things like that started to happen. So I saw that as a positive after I really took that decision understanding what Jesus is about, accepting him, believing more than anything. So I those kind of interventions changed, came into my life, even though I still faced other difficulties, challenges that were even more difficult than what I had faced initially. So, but still, I think I dealt with them better than before, because now I understood that as much as he promises us a better life, but we will still meet challenges of this world, But now I can no longer be dealing with those challenges like someone who doesn't know Jesus. I must know that even at my weakest, but I know that, he has me, he has my back. It's just a minor challenge. So I kind of, the mind shift, I think, for me was the main thing. Even though I still went through a lot, but the mind shift, the mental strength to the resilience to deal with whatever came my way after that, which is quite a lot as well, was one of the benefits of having accepted Jesus. So look, having mentioned some of the difficulties that I faced at, varsity, not having this, not having that, there was a time I was forced to leave without completing my studies at the time, because I could no longer be able to afford being there, whether at res or tuition fees or food or stuff. I just couldn't afford everything that came with being there, so I had to leave. I had to work or find work, and that was tough. You can imagine when you in South Africa, it's hard to find employment if you don't really have a qualification. But at the time, even though I got an opportunity to complete much later, but at the time, I had to face that situation. That was tough. For like 2 years, I was hunting for work. It was tough. Nothing came up. Until at some point when I was invited to an interview by, I used to work for Capitec Bank. I was invited to an interview there. I did well in the interview. I got the job. But now the challenge was that I had to go into an unfamiliar city where I had to work, posted in a branch there. I knew no one. I had to find a place to stay. I had to have things, at least a bed. I had to have, money for food. So that was quite challenging. Again, reached out to family, reached out to this person or another. I couldn't get any kind of assistance from anyone. But I told myself that whatever happens, I'm going to that job, even if it means I have to sleep in the street. So one day I went there. I had very little money, at least to travel and go there. I went there. I randomly went to different places to look for a room to rent, even though I had nothing, like not even a cent. So I went to this other place. I met the owner of the place. I negotiated with him that, look, I just told him the whole story, that, look, I'm coming from another town. I'm here. I got this job. I'm starting the next week. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have a place to stay. I don't have money to pay rent. Can I get the room and then I'll pay you on the 25th when I get paid? As reluctant as he was, but ultimately I agreed. So I got the place to stay, and that was all. I had to sleep on the floor because I had no bed. I did not have food, no stove, no pots, nothing. So I remember I started on the 10th, it was the 10th of March that year, 2014. I was supposed to get paid on the 25th. And from that day up until the day I got paid, so from the 10th to the 25th, I had nothing to eat at all. Absolutely nothing. I couldn't even afford, a sweet 10 cents, a sweet that cost 10 cents. I remember I used to drink a lot of coffee at work because I had coffee. And, my colleagues thought I was a coffee addict. But for me, it was some sort of an energy booster thing because I had nothing to eat. So the coffee was the only thing that I could get some energy. I used to drink coffee with a lot of sugar. So that was how I survived for 17 days, 10th to 25th of March, 2014. I think that was one of the most difficult times of my life. I didn't think I was going to survive, but I went there every day. I did my work quite well. My training, I aced all my trainings, and I don't think in any of my assessments I got less than 90% on a hungry stomach. Because I prayed every day, I prayed every day, and I think God gave me that strength that I needed. At some point, I even used to forget that I don't have anything to eat, because I told myself, look, I have to survive here until I get paid. So that was a tough time. It's better now because I can talk about it freely. It used to be a very tough emotional thing for me. I think even when I thought about it, I used to just cry because, it was a tough situation. I lost a lot of weight. I didn't look so good. I remember on the day I got paid, the first thing I did was to buy food. Lots of it. Lots and lots of food. Because I had really just had the worst experience of my life. And knowing that, there could have been immediate family who could have helped me, but for some reason, I was on my own. But Jesus helped me up. he helped me up. He gave me strength. Well, I think it's important to pray. It's important to build a relationship with Jesus. It's very important. Life is not always roses. Life can be hard. And it really works. It's not just theory. Where you pray and you keep that relationship with Jesus. You sometimes, even if you don't have anything to eat the whole day, you sometimes even forget if you really get to connect, at a certain level. I remember, oh God, what's there's a scripture that really gave me strength. I think it's somewhere in Psalm 23, that prayer, the Lord is my shepherd. It says, I shall not want. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Even though I wanted at the time, I had nothing. But I used to do that as a sort of a declaration almost every day, that I shall not want. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall not fear, for you are with me. I used to recite that every day, and I took it as something that I really believed in it, That, and there's also a part that speaks of, given all that I was going through. It says my cup overflows. He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. And that all has happened. All of that I used to go through, when I used to recite that as a declaration in my life. When I look at it now, I feel like that actually worked. Whenever I did not have a plan, I did not know what to do, it gave me hope that as much as I have nothing now, He says, I shall not want. So one day, I'll have something. I'll have those greener pastures, He will fill me up. My cup will overflow. I will have things that I never thought I would have. So for me, that was the sort of declaration that I used every day. And also Psalm 91. If anyone can read that and do it as a declaration every day, I think, and believe it, do it with faith. It would help. But I think involving oneself with the church. I think that's also important, because in one of my struggles, I got to meet people of God who were able to understand my struggles and who were able to extend a hand. So it helps that when you go through such difficulties, you also involve yourself with like-minded people, with a church, people of God that will understand and see you and see where they can help, where you need help, either on material things or spiritually, whatever. I think that also helps a lot. It helped me. I was in Durban since 2018. I was working there. And then, COVID came, 2020. I was one of the unfortunate ones who were laid off, retrenchments. And I think that was one of the most toughest times of my life. Because, at some point, I was laid off, I was retrenched, I survived for a few months. At some point, the little savings that I had ran out. Because, before that, I didn't really have a good job. It was just one of those jobs at call centers. So, they don't pay much. So I didn't have much savings. So at some point that ran out. So if money runs out, food runs out, a lot of things ran out. At some point, I started to not be able to afford rent. It went on. I did try to survive, though. I remember I started selling chips, fried chips. I had a deep fry thing there, fried chips and gizzards in the street every day, hot or raining, because I needed to survive. I needed to pay rent, I needed to have food, I needed to do this and that. So that's how I survived for over a year, about a year or so. And then I was robbed. Someone, some thugs, they took my deep fryer and table and stuff. So I could no longer now provide for myself. I could no longer do that business that I was doing. They took money, they took everything. And that really now became tough. I remember there was a time I had 2.5 kg of maize meal and a 6-pack of baked beans. And maybe I would cook that in one can, and then maybe pass another 6 days or so without eating so that it can last longer, And it was tough, but God was with me. And then at the time, beginning 2022, as I was still going through that, 2022 last year, I didn't have money for rent at all. I had been negotiating even from the previous month with my landlord until she got touched, like, hey, no, I cannot take your stories anymore. So she locked me out. I did not know where I was going to take money to pay rent. She locked me out. My stuff was locked inside. So I think I was just wearing some jeans, t-shirt, didn't have a jacket, nothing. Didn't have food for 3 days. I had to sleep outside. Like outside in the field, for 3 days. And the unfortunate thing about life is that for some reason it rained on those days, so I could feel that I'm sleeping outside. It was raining and cold. For the first time in my life, with all the struggles, I had to sleep outside. And I prayed a lot during those days. I prayed a lot until I met this other person who offered me a place. It was a bad place, but at least it had shelter, broken windows and stuff, but at least I was not going to be outside. So I met this person. It was from a church, a local church there. So they took me in, to that place. I stayed there for a little while until they took me in to stay in the church premises as a caretaker of the church. So my remuneration was shelter, So they took me in there. And they used to buy me groceries because I had nothing. And this is last year, 2022, beginning of the year. So they bought me groceries and, essentials, foods. So that's how I survived. But I think my breakthrough, I remember before, around Easter, that was before I went to stay in the church. I was still staying in that room that the other person found me. I think that's where my breakthrough came. There was the Easter service, but it was not at the normal church hall. It was kind of quite a distance. I think it could be probably a distance from here to Southgate, right? So I had to go there. I told myself I'm gonna go. I didn't have money, I didn't have transport, I didn't have nothing. But I wanted to go because I had committed that I was gonna serve as a security personnel, during the church service. People have cars and stuff, so we're going to serve as a security personnel. But, you don't want to tell people, look, okay, I don't have money. Can you give me money for transport? So I just thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to get there. So I walked that very long distance. It was quite tiring, but I had reached a level where I understood that even though I had nothing, that I had to serve. Sometimes God tests us so much and tests our faith so much that we must be careful not to fail the test. If I could have just slept and said, no, it's too long a distance, God will understand. He knows I have nothing. But I said, you know what? I'm going there, whether I walk or not. And I did. And I think that's where my breakthrough came from. I think God could see my heart, because even after that, I think some of the congregants. So a lot of people came. Oh, we saw you walking, gave me money and stuff. And the weekend after that Easter Sunday, I got a call from someone I think I had not seen in like 10 years. And he says to me, look, there's, I didn't even know they had my number. He says, there's a vacancy, where I work. I'll give you an email address. You send your CV and your certificates and qualifications. And then, the rest is history. Because then I sent my staff CV, certificates. It was quiet though for like a month. And then I got an email that I had been shortlisted for an interview. And I was in Durban, the interview was in Joburg. And now that became another stress. How do I get to Joburg? And again, I want to, make a point about faith and prayer. That I said to God, you gave me this opportunity. You know the kind of tough life that I've been living. Please make a way. Someone called. After that, once my date was confirmed for the interview, he said, look, I'll book a flight for you and accommodation for you for the interview. And just out of nowhere, so I could see God at work. And when I went to the interview, I was really prepared. I think I knew by probably 30 minutes into the interview that there is no way I'm not going to get the job. I was over prepared. I knew I was going to get it. And then I got a call in July that I had been successful. And that was, I don't know, I cannot describe that moment. I didn't even finish the call. I think, I don't even know where my phone went. I cried a lot because now I was thinking of all the struggle that I had, because it had been a period of 2 years, 2020 to 2022. It struggled a lot. So I think I started to think of all that time at that moment when I had that congratulations. And why I cried really was that it is a really good job. It's bigger than any job I've ever had. Even when I sent my CV, I didn't have enough belief that I would make it because I thought I was underqualified for the job. But God had, other plans. I think it was my time. It was my time. It was time that He elevated me. So I knew then that my struggles are over now. With all that I went through, now my struggles are over. So I cried a lot. I cried a lot. It was very emotional. I think for like a week or so, I was very emotional. Even when I had to tell, or sort of brought it as a testimony in the church that I was in there, I still cried again because I was reliving the bad experiences. Instead of celebrating, I was just reliving all those bad experiences and now thinking, I'm over that. The breakthrough that I've been praying for has come. And it taught me something about faith, that when we pray and we pray with faith, it also doesn't mean that it will happen now, but it will happen. So patience, perseverance, keep the faith, keep praying. Yes, you'll have those moments where you doubt God. You're like, hey God, you don't love me. Other people are flourishing. Nah. The more I pray, the more things go bad, So you have those moments, but you keep going. You pray, You are hungry, you have nothing, you pray. You don't know where your next meal will come from. You don't know how your life will turn out. You're sleeping in the street as I was. You pray. You maintain that relationship. You don't turn into other things. You know, there's a lot of things that people tend to. They tend to drugs, they tend to steal stuff, they rob people. I'm so grateful to God that I never, with all my struggles, I never turned into those things, but I always relied on Him, and I think I always got that emotional support. So it's been quite a nice thing now when I came here, you know, because I started my new job in August last year. So it's 6 months now. And I'm having the best time of my life. I'm having the best time of my life. I'm okay. I don't need anything like I used to, you know. It's you know, from, I think I was speaking to someone, I was saying, from sleeping in the street to being the national education officer of the biggest trade union in the public service. If that's not God, then I don't know what. Well, not much. Just maybe to say, keep praying, keep the faith. Don't let things, you know, don't let the devil defeat you.
Sure.
Because sometimes, even when for instance, I have this breakthrough now, I'm living a good life, I'm okay. But there will still be those challenges. The devil will still tempt me on that and that and that to try and take away what I have now. So I think maybe one of the lessons is that even when I have, I should still remember that He carried me.
Yeah.
That now that I have, I must not now sleep without praying. Now I have got it all, I've got it all figured out, and I'm okay. I don't need Jesus anymore, you know. And there are some people who fall into that trap. You know, when they struggle, they are the best Christians. When they have stuff, they think it's through their own doing. So keep faith, keep praying, keep that relationship, be connected.